The most successful people you know didn't wake up one morning and decide to be extraordinary. They didn't stumble upon some secret formula or inherit a magic wand that transformed their lives overnight. What they did was far more subtle, far more powerful, and completely within your reach right now. They built invisible bridges to their dreams, one small habit at a time. You see, there's something happening in your life right now that you might not even notice. Every single day, you're making choices that are either pulling you toward the life you want or pushing you further away from it. These aren't the big, dramatic decisions that make headlines. They're the quiet moments when nobody's watching, when you think your actions don't matter, when you believe that what you do in private has no impact on your public success. But here's what I've discovered after watching thousands of people transform their lives. Success isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself with trumpets or parade down the street demanding attention. Success whispers. It tiptoes into your life through the back door of daily habits that seem so ordinary, so insignificant, that most people dismiss them entirely. Think about the last time you walked past a garden that took your breath away. The flowers didn't bloom overnight. The gardener didn't plant seeds on Monday and harvest beauty on Tuesday. Every single day, that gardener did something small. Watered the soil, pulled a weed, adjusted the light. Tiny actions that nobody noticed, nobody applauded, nobody even thought to mention. Yet those invisible daily acts created something magnificent. What if I told you that your life operates on the exact same principle? What if the difference between where you are now and where you want to be isn't some giant leap you need to make, but rather a series of small, consistent actions that nobody sees, but everybody eventually feels? There's a man who became one of the wealthiest individuals in his country, not because he made one brilliant investment, but because he developed the habit of saving a small portion of every dollar that came his way. While his friends were spending their entire paychecks, he was quietly setting aside money, not for anything specific, just because he had trained himself to value the future more than immediate gratification. 20 years later, while his friends were still living paycheck to paycheck, he owned apartment buildings, had investments that earned him more in a month than most people made in a year, and had the freedom to do whatever he wanted with his time. The habit that changed his life? Saving 15 cents out of every dollar. 15 cents. Less than the cost of a phone call. Yet that seemingly insignificant habit, repeated daily for decades, created wealth that most people only dream about. But here's what's truly remarkable about this story. It wasn't just about the money. That habit of delayed gratification, of choosing future benefit over immediate pleasure, began to show up in every area of his life. He developed the habit of reading educational books instead of just entertainment. He created the habit of exercising regularly instead of making excuses. He built the habit of treating people with respect and kindness, even when they couldn't do anything for him in return. Each of these habits seemed small and unimportant on any given day, but together they created a person who attracted success, like a magnet attracts metal. Now, let me ask you something that might make you uncomfortable. What habits are you building right now? Not the ones you wish you had, not the ones you plan to start tomorrow, but the ones you're actually practicing today. Because whether you realize it or not, you're already building habits. Every time you choose to hit the snooze button instead of getting up when your alarm goes off, you're building a habit. Every time you choose to complain about your circumstances instead of taking action to change them, you're building a habit. Every time you choose to watch television instead of reading something that could improve your mind, you're building a habit. The question isn't whether you're building habits. The question is, are you building habits that serve your future self, or are you building habits that sabotage your dreams? There's a woman who wanted to become a professional speaker, but she was terrified of public speaking. Instead of enrolling in expensive courses or waiting for the perfect opportunity, she developed a simple habit. Every morning she would stand in front of her bathroom mirror and speak for 5 minutes about whatever came to mind. 5 minutes. Less time than it takes to brush your teeth and get dressed. At first she felt foolish. Her voice shook. She stumbled over words. She couldn't maintain eye contact with herself in the mirror. But she kept doing it day after day, even when she didn't feel like it. Especially when she didn't feel like it. After 6 months, something remarkable happened. She found herself speaking up in meetings at work. She volunteered to give a presentation to her department. She joined a local organization and offered to speak at their monthly gathering. 3 years later, she was earning more money speaking at events than she had ever made in her regular job. But more importantly, she had become a person who was comfortable with her own voice, confident in her ideas and willing to share her thoughts with the world. The habit that transformed her life: 5 minutes of daily practice in front of a mirror. 5 minutes that most people would dismiss as too simple to matter. But here's the secret that separates people who achieve their dreams from those who only talk about them. They understand that success is not about making perfect choices, it's about making consistent choices. Are you starting to see the pattern? Are you beginning to understand that the life you want isn't hiding behind some impossible challenge or waiting for some perfect moment? It's available to you right now, through the simple act of choosing better habits and repeating them until they become as natural as breathing. But here's where most people get it wrong. They think habits are about discipline, about forcing yourself to do things you don't want to do. They picture habits as chains that bind them to a rigid schedule, as punishment for past failures, as evidence that they're not strong enough to succeed without structure. That's not what habits are at all. Habits are freedom. They're the invisible force that carries you toward your dreams without you having to think about it, without you having to fight yourself every single day, without you having to rely on willpower that comes and goes like the weather. Think about how you learned to drive a car. At first, every single action required intense concentration. You had to think about pressing the gas pedal, checking the mirrors, turning the wheel, using the turn signals. Your mind was completely occupied with the mechanical aspects of driving. You were exhausted after a short trip because every moment demanded your full attention. But something beautiful happened over time. Those actions became automatic. Now you can drive while having a conversation, while listening to music, while thinking about your day. You don't have to force yourself to check the mirrors or use the turn signals. Your subconscious mind handles these tasks so efficiently that you barely notice them happening. That's the power of habits. They move from conscious effort to unconscious competence. They become part of who you are, rather than something you have to do. Now let me share with you the most important truth about building success-attracting habits. They work in reverse. The habits that seem to have nothing to do with your goals are often the ones that create the biggest transformation in your life. There's a man who wanted to become a successful writer, but he struggled with self-doubt and procrastination. Every time he sat down to write, his mind would flood with negative thoughts. He'd tell himself he wasn't talented enough, that nobody would want to read his work, that he was wasting his time. Instead of trying to fix his writing directly, he developed a seemingly unrelated habit: making his bed every morning. Perfect corners, smooth sheets, pillows arranged just so. It took him less than 2 minutes, but he did it every single day without exception. After a month of this simple habit, something unexpected happened. He began to feel differently about himself. He started to see himself as someone who finished what he started, someone who paid attention to details, someone who cared about creating order and beauty in his environment. This new self-leash began to spill over into other areas of his life. He started keeping his desk clean and organized. He began showing up to appointments 5 minutes early instead of 5 minutes late. He started treating his writing time as seriously as he treated his morning bed-making routine. 2 years later, he had written and published 3 books. But more importantly, he had become a person who believed in his own ability to follow through on commitments, starting with a 2-minute morning ritual that had nothing to do with writing. The habit that changed his life wasn't about writing at all. It was about building trust with himself, one perfectly made bed at a time. Are you beginning to see how this works? Are you starting to understand that success isn't about finding the right strategy or the perfect plan? It's about becoming the kind of person who attracts success naturally, effortlessly, inevitably. But here's what I want you to understand most deeply. The habits that will transform your life are probably not the ones you think they are. They're not the obvious ones, the ones that everyone talks about, the ones that seem directly connected to your goals. They're the quiet ones, the ones that happen in private, the ones that build character instead of just building skills, the ones that change who you are, not just what you do. There's a woman who wanted to start her own business, but she was paralyzed by fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of looking foolish. She had a great idea, she had the knowledge and skills, but she couldn't take the first step because the fear felt overwhelming. Instead of trying to overcome her fear through positive thinking or motivational speeches, she developed a different habit. Every day, she would do one small thing that scared her. Not business, just something that pushed her slightly outside her comfort zone. She might call a restaurant to ask about their hours instead of looking it up online. She might take a different route to work. She might start a conversation with a stranger in the grocery store checkout line. Tiny acts of courage that seemed to have nothing to do with starting a business. But each small act of courage was like a deposit in her bravery account. Every time she did something that scared her and survived, she proved to herself that fear was just a feeling, not a fact. She began to see fear as a signal that she was growing, not a warning that she was in danger. 6 months later, she quit her job and started her own consulting business, not because the fear went away, but because she had trained herself to act in the presence of fear. She had built the habit of courage through hundreds of small daily acts that nobody else even noticed. The habit that transformed her business life? Doing one small, scary thing every day. A habit that had nothing to do with business strategy and everything to do with building the character of an entrepreneur. What small habit could you build today that would change who you are becoming tomorrow? Because here's the truth that will set you free. You don't need to change everything at once. You don't need to become perfect overnight. You don't need to wait until you have more time, more money, more knowledge, or more confidence. You just need to choose one small habit and commit to it completely. But let me tell you what's going to happen when you start building these quiet habits of success. At first, nothing will seem different. You'll make your bed perfectly, and your life will look exactly the same. You'll read for 10 minutes before sleep, and your problems will still be there when you wake up. You'll save that small amount of money, and you'll still have bills to pay. This is the dangerous time. This is when most people quit. Because they expect dramatic results from small actions, they miss the quiet miracle that's happening beneath the surface. Success habits work like compound interest. The first day's investment seems insignificant. The first week's return is hardly noticeable. But something powerful is building in the unseen places of your life. Your character is strengthening. Your self-respect is growing. Your confidence is deepening. You're becoming the kind of person who keeps promises to themselves, who follows through on commitments, who treats their future self with love and respect. And then, usually when you least expect it, the results start showing up in ways you never imagined. Opportunities appear. People begin to notice something different about you. Doors open that you didn't even know existed. Not because you've been networking or strategizing or pushing for results, but because you've been quietly building the character that naturally attracts success. Here's what I want you to understand. The person you're becoming through your daily habits is more important than any goal you're trying to achieve. Because the right person with the right character will always find a way to create the life they want. But the wrong person, no matter how much they achieve, will always find a way to lose what they've gained. So choose your habits carefully. Choose them not just for what they'll help you accomplish, but for who they'll help you become. Choose habits that build integrity, that develop patience, that create resilience, that foster kindness. Choose habits that make you proud of who you are when nobody's watching. Start tomorrow morning. Choose one small habit that seems almost too simple to matter. Make it so easy that you can't fail, so quick that you can't make excuses, so small that you can't rationalize skipping it. Maybe it's reading one page of a good book. Maybe it's writing 3 sentences in a journal. Maybe it's doing 5 push-ups. Maybe it's telling someone you love them. Maybe it's saying thank you for one thing you usually take for granted. A specific habit doesn't matter as much as the commitment to consistency, because what you're really building isn't just a better morning routine or a healthier lifestyle or a more successful career. What you're building is trust with yourself. And that trust, once established, becomes the foundation for everything else you want to create in your life. Your future self is counting on the choices you make today, not the big, dramatic choices that everyone will notice, but the small, quiet choices that nobody will see, but everybody will eventually feel. The habits you build in private will reward you in public. The character you develop in the hidden moments will serve you in the spotlight. The person you become through daily discipline will attract the life you've always dreamed of living. The time is now. The choice is yours. The habits are waiting. What will you choose?